Retirement is a milestone many people dream of. However, it often comes with a set of fears. How do you overcome those fears?
Hello and welcome to The Relax. It's Retirement Podcast with your host, Josh Leonard, where we talk about transitioning into retirement with intent. I'm Wendy McConnell. We are here with Pete Belcastro. Hello, fellas.
Hey, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy. How are we today?
I've been told I'm a little spicy, but
That's good.
Yeah. All right.
A little spice in the winter, sometimes good. Helps clear up the sinuses, so.
Hopefully you can melt some of this snow.
The funny part is, living in Michigan, we have no snow right now. And everywhere else seems to have snow.
Yep. It's a winter wonderland out there.
It's miserable.
It's plenty cold here, though. Don't worry.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm glad you're cold. Okay.
Yep.
So what have we got going on for today?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about 5 of the biggest retirement fears. So these are things we commonly hear from folks that we meet with or clients about fears around retiring. I think we all look forward to retirement. Hey, it's this big milestone, but as it comes closer, just like anything we look forward to, we get a little nervous about it. Yana and the kids and I were traveling recently, and especially with kids, I find like the minute you get in the car to go drive to the airport, you're like, wait, did I forget sunscreen? Did I forget something essential? Ironically, Pete and I were traveling recently too, and we both forgot a belt. Go figure. How does that work? I don't know. But retirement, we want to be prepared for. We don't want to forget the belt or the sunscreen or an essential ingredient. So many times that harbors in fear. Well, we believe that education can help you overcome some of those fears. Maybe for Pete and I, we need a checklist that says, bring a belt to business meetings. But, to each their own. For retirement planning, we help people out on a daily basis. That's our specialty. So today we're going to talk through 5 of those biggest fears. The first one being outliving savings, losing purpose, healthcare costs, loneliness, and long-term care expenses.
So what do you think the number one fear is?
I think the biggest one that we hear is, am I going to run out of money?
I agree.
I think what maybe is not... what people don't think about until they retire as much is, what am I going to do with my time? So that losing purpose. But that often comes up, maybe 3 to 6 months into retirement. Hey, I was an engineer and that's how I defined myself for the last 40 years of my life. Now I'm not an engineer. Who am I? So that sense of losing purpose and finding a new path forward, I think are 2 common ones. So I would say the biggest is running out of money. No one wants to run out of money and have to go back to work, right?
Yeah, so tell me, how do I make sure it doesn't happen, even if I have no money in the bank and no savings?
Yeah, well, don't do that. That's it. Peter Drucker once said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So let's come up with a plan. Let's run through different scenarios so that we can see or have a good view of what our future might look like.
That's right. We can fear the unknown, but we should fear no evil and we should fear no retirement. And like we talked about, the best way is know what's coming. It's down the road. It's inevitable. So I think that the first looking at what you have in the bank, that's the first good step.
Yeah, fear of running out of savings or your investments as a whole. Well, just take a look at it, right? I think for my mom, longevity is a concern that we have as a family. My great-grandmother was 92. My grandmother passed away at 97. So if we follow that trend, my mom will most likely be about 100 or more than that when she passes away. That's a really long retirement if you retire at age 65. So factoring that in and building a plan to make sure that you don't run out of money is super important. I think in that income plan, a big one that is often overlooked or we just assume we're going to do it once we retire is selecting your Social Security benefits. So many times people think, hey, I'm retired, I take Social Security. Those are 2 separate decisions. You can take Social Security and not retire. You can also retire and not take Social Security. Optimizing that is something that's important in your income plan, especially if it was a dual income household. If both of you have pretty strong benefits, maybe it makes sense for the lower earner to take that benefit when you do retire and defer the payment for the spouse that has earned more to lock in the highest possible payment.
That's right. The longer you wait, the more you get.
Yep. And in terms of Social Security, you get more if you wait. But for many folks, they say, hey, I'm retired. I don't have enough in savings that all of my income can be coming. So taking that blended approach might help. When one of the two of a couple passes away, the surviving spouse gets the highest payment of the two. So if you defer the higher earners, you're guaranteeing that whoever lives the longest is going to have the highest possible payment. So that's a great strategy to kind of protect your surviving spouse as well.
All right. So what other strategies then?
Yeah, I think in terms of outliving your savings, you want to establish clear goals, knowing what might lie ahead. Hey, we replace vehicles every 5 years. Well, let's build that expense into a plan. That's a pretty big expense. If you think 2 years into retirement, you're going to remodel the kitchen, also probably a good thing to factor in and not say, hey, we'll be fine with the normal level of income, right? These are larger expenses that don't fit into a normal budget. Looking down the line and saying, hey, maybe we'll want to downsize or relocate to another area, factoring that into a plan. I know Pete and I were talking about some of the planning stuff and building out goals for clients within their retirement plans. And he had brought up, the idea of moving closer to other family members. So maybe that relocation is not going to Florida or somewhere warmer, but I just want to be a little bit closer to the kids. So building that kind of stuff into the plan. Now, if your kids live in California and you live in Pittsburgh, your cost of living is drastically different. So let's evaluate those options and build that into a plan.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is the things that we can't see, or the things that you can't come up with, that's what really ends up blowing up your retirement. So, if you can, have these known expenses, when those unexpected things come up, you can handle them.
Yeah. And I think in terms of like accumulating, don't just wait and say, hey, you know what? I'm 3 months away from retirement. Now I'm going to figure out the plan. We need to be saving along the way intentionally. Now, for many of our listeners, you're probably in that fourth quarter of your working years. So we don't have, we can't time flash back to our 20s and save more. But hey, maybe we need to start cutting spending now to save a little bit more to give us some more flexibility. Warren Buffett's quoted as saying, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after savings. So develop that plan and spend accordingly. Don't do the opposite. Don't spend on everything you can possibly find, because there's a lot of great ways to spend money. Saving it is the harder piece.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to know what's going to happen in the future. We use a lot of, different, resources to see what we can do to try and come up with a worst case scenarios for clients, and, trying to throw different factors in there. So there's a lot available that's out there. A lot of the software and things that you find online, sometimes you got to put a little bit of information. So there's a lot of different resources and things that we use to make sure that nothing, we try and mitigate things that could come up in retirement.
So what about this retirement calculator? How does that work?
Yeah, so utilizing some level of software, there's some free basic retirement calculators online. If you're working with a financial advisor, they're often more complex tools where we're able to adjust more variables like inflation, taxation, your actual spending habits over time, and adjust that. But what that does is it gives you a picture of when your money might run out. And hey, based on how you're invested, what's the probability that we're going to reach the goal? Those are very informative, because then we can use that to help tailor our decisions, like when to take Social Security, what accounts to withdraw from. If we're thinking of purchasing a second home, is that actually affordable? Hey, we want to take all these great trips and take the kids and grandkids with us. can we afford to pay for them? Or is it more, hey, we'll cover a couple dinners while we're there?
Yeah. Or maybe at the end of the plan, you say that, geez, maybe that's a little bit too much money for my kids to inherit. I'm going to start spending more here. So it's not always, hey, this is a restricting. It actually can be freeing and hey, we're better off than we thought we were. And, we don't have to, maybe skimp where we thought we might have to.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I just had a conversation with a client last night on that same point. Is we were looking at how much they've saved for retirement. They're going to be retiring here in the next 2 months. And they're like, well, maybe I'll keep working part-time. And they're kind of balancing this like, I'm actually leaving work. What am I going to do? But also they recently had a friend pass away 2 months before he was retiring. So, sort of exactly where they are now. And we had this whole conversation around dying at the desk, right? Is your work something that you're that passionate about that's it for you? You want to end that chapter there? Because this amount of money that you saved with the intention of someday I'm going to live off of that. So let's utilize that and maximize that. We have that conversation too many times with clients of like, hey, you're not, most likely, can't guarantee, you're not going to run out of money. So have fun, right? One client went to New Zealand this past year, and they had inherited some money. They were in good shape on their own financially, and we're like, buy a first class ticket. It might be the only time in your life that you fly first class, but you have enough, and that's a miserably long flight to New Zealand, right? So enjoy it a little bit. You worked hard. It's okay to treat yourself a little bit.
I like it.
Or front row Taylor Swift tickets, whatever it might be.
Front row, yeah.
I think first class to New Zealand's cheaper, actually.
Probably was.
But, that kind of pivots to the next point of, that fear of losing purpose in retirement. So, a lot of us grasp to work because that is our purpose, transitioning into retirement. How do we fill that gap? So it could be, volunteering more, spending more time with family. Those are common things we hear. Being more active in the church. Sometimes it might even be consulting or mentoring younger people in the same profession. So although you might earn some income there, it's not really income driven. It's more, hey, I'm sharing my wealth of knowledge with the next generation, which can be rewarding far more emotionally than it is financially.
Yeah, we talk about that kind of dying at the desk, like you said. And if we know that retirement's coming and, you start to feel like, gosh, my job is my purpose, is my identity. Those are a little bit of red flags because, eventually, some people can work forever. Like Josh said, maybe it's consulting, but some people can't. Maybe you're in a profession where, it's physical and that's not going to be possible. So even though that might take up all your time and you're really busy, looking at these other strategies that we're talking about here it's really vitally important.
Yeah, I think picking up old hobbies is something that I'm seeing more and more. As people are healthier in their 60s and 70s, they're able to do more. I think this week my parents have been a great example. When they were here in Michigan a few months ago, they found like a used sports equipment store and they picked up cross-country skis. When they were newly married, they would go cross-country skiing, in the winter, when they lived in Cleveland. And now they've picked that habit back up in retirement. And my mom sent me a picture the other day of her smiling, with this big grin, cross-country skiing with my dad. And they're going on weekdays in the middle of the day when no one else is on those trails. So it's very peaceful. It's not like being at a crowded ski resort Saturday afternoon. It's a very peaceful activity for them that they haven't been able to do for 40 years at this point.
That's so neat. Yeah.
So finding those hobbies, maybe reinvigorating, that in particular I love because it's exercise for them too, which is going to give you some health benefits. Being outside is always good for us. A little bit of exercise and doing something you love is good medicine. That helps give you purpose as well.
Yes, I agree.
Exercising also can help you minimize health costs, which is another big fear we hear from folks. The cost, Fidelity does an estimate. I know I've shared it on the podcast here, but it's over $250,000 is estimated healthcare costs for someone retiring today. That is terrifying. For most folks, no one can think about writing a check for $250,000 or any portion of that to cover health care. So there's a couple things we can do to kind of hedge that fear. One, make informed decisions around Medicare. We need to know the Medicare system. We're switching gears. We have a new avenue, just like with retirement income or tax planning in retirement, with our medical. As we go into Medicare, we have the option to choose plans as we first go on to Medicare to cover us. If we choose a more robust plan, that can cover more of the expenses in the future. So sitting down and evaluating which direction you want to go, Medicare Advantage versus supplements, is very helpful. And then reviewing your drug plan and your plan in general every year is critical to maintaining or to minimizing the cost of healthcare in retirement.
Yeah, be realistic as well. I know a lot of people, maybe you don't even, go to the doctor regularly. In the last 15% of our life, we spend about 85% of our healthcare cost. So, that's on average. We know it's coming. This is another thing like retirement. Hey, this doesn't last forever. This train has an end, and we can't do things in the leading up to this. Like Josh said, hey, get activities that make us healthier. Have good habits as far as our diets or even sleep. But just know that it's that it's coming.
Yeah, I think knowing that you're going to have increased medical expenses in retirement is pretty well known. I think around long-term care, we get a lot of concerns voiced to us from clients of, how am I going to pay for this? And well, there's a couple options. You can use some form of insurance to help cover that cost, but many times that's prohibitively expensive and uncertain. Traditional long-term care insurance is guaranteed renewable, where they have to keep renewing the insurance each and every year, but they can also increase the cost. So like for my grandmother, the cost was about 4 times what she was initially paying for that long-term care insurance when she actually needed it. So if you're looking at running out of money, one of those other fears, if we have an unpredictable cost, that doesn't necessarily help us. For some folks, it is positioning assets so they can spend down to go on to Medicaid. There you lack a little bit of choice of facility or where you might be for that care, but that is an option. So just thinking through that, looking at the cost of care, maybe there's family members that can help keep you in the home longer and out of a long-term care facility. But if all your kids live across the country, that might be something to consider there as well. We've seen some clients look at transitional facilities where it's a retirement community that you start out with like a condo or a townhouse, and as you need more care, they move you into an apartment and then eventually more of a long-term care type situation. So you become accustomed to being in that community. There's social activities, depending on the level of care you need, but you're kind of in one place. You're not moving at a late stage from the home that you've always been into, especially when there's memory issues involved, directly to a long-term care home. So sometimes those are good options for folks as well. They'll look at selling their primary residence and using that money to fund that level of care. So that can be an option as well.
Yeah, that's a great option that we see, especially whenever things change in your life, you lose mobility or things change with your spouse. There's getting into a facility that has a plan in place that really does end up helping. And obviously planning for that before you need it is really the most important thing.
Yeah, I got ahead of myself a little bit there, guys. So we will jump back to the fear of loneliness. So being alone. And I think we often hear this from folks that are single, right? If you lost a spouse or someone that was your partner for life, or maybe your social circle was mostly based around work, when you retire, you might lose that. So how, similar to that loss of purpose, how can we develop habits to stay connected to others?
Let's hear it. I'm worried about this.
Okay, good. Well, I think racquetball, number one engagement activities for retirees. So get that racquetball out, go join.
Racquetball? Really?
You sure it's not pickleball?
Pickleball.
Yeah.
I was going to
It
say.
used to be racquetball. That was the
Badminton.
I was like, but in all honesty, I have met so many people playing pickleball. So, I mean, having a hobby or something to do is always a way for you to meet more people.
And I think that what you've done is, I know that you had a partner, you were playing in some we had talked about that around our goals podcast, but having a normal cadence to those activities. Hey, Tuesday night, I go and play pickleball or whatever it might be, Sunday afternoon. Having that regular cadence, not just when I feel like it, because sometimes you don't feel like it, but if you have that regular cadence, you train yourself. Just like exercise and savings, right? It's a habit that we build in. That could be, if you're faith-based, that could be Bible study groups as well. We have a client that belongs to the church choir and does mahjong, and she has two different groups, two different choirs she's a part of, and two different mahjong groups. And her schedule will do client events, and she'll call me, you know what? Can't make it this time. I got choir practice, and she's filled her calendar. Although she lives by herself, she's always interacting with others.
That's great. Yeah, I love it.
So intentionally building that out, not just waiting for the loneliness to hit. So maybe if you're 2 to 3 years out of retirement, starting to explore some of those activities. Maybe you have a friend that plays pickleball. Just go play with them once and see if it's something that you might be into.
And I think you could see what we're doing here is all these things are compounding. It's like a financial plan. We start with a base and you keep on building it, and a lot of things actually correlate and help each other. Like we said, if you're playing pickleball, not only does that get you out of the house, you can make new friends. It gets you healthier. Which can help with the other areas as far as healthcare. And once you establish those maybe initial costs. Maybe it actually saves you money because you're not out there maybe just buying things you don't use. You're out there just using your racket and the ball you already have.
It's a paddle, Pete, okay?
The paddle. I don't know the lingo. But
clearly, Pete, I don't either.
But we definitely, it's a compounding effect, all these things, so it's not just one piece of the puzzle. All these things work in to build a great financial picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on loneliness too, be careful relocating in retirement. Sometimes we've seen folks will, buy the place in Florida or Arizona or move to that warmer climate, but they don't actually have a community set up there. Now, of course, in these locations where there's a lot of retirees, like the villages in Florida come to mind, where there is so many activities, I think you could do a new one every day of the year. But if you're moving to a new community, see what resources are there. Make sure that you know that you're going to connect with the people, right? I think we've all moved into a new neighborhood or maybe in an apartment building where, man, these neighbors are crazy. I can't believe I live next to them. You certainly don't want to move away from all your personal connections and be in that scenario when you're no longer working and you're more reliant on those social connections.
Yeah.
Today, we talked about 5 fears around retirement planning. If you're experiencing any of these fears or you have concerns around the transition to retirement, we encourage you to meet with your financial advisor or reach out to us at the Leonard Advisory Group to schedule a 15-minute call to talk through some of those fears. We believe that with proper planning, we can overcome most of the common retirement fears. Remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of an open highway.
That's right.
Until next time, remember to retire with intent so you can live your golden years with the happiness and excitement you deserve.